Hello, my name is Tony Garascia, and I am a marriage and family therapist, and I have worked for many, many years with couples and families in terms of preparation for marriage and also making their marriage a better community for them to thrive. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how you can grow your marriage and how you can solve conflict as it shows up in your marriage. First of all, I want to congratulate you on taking this step to commit yourselves to one another through the sacrament of marriage. Many researchers have told us through the years that communication and conflict resolution have shown to be very, very important elements in a successful marriage. And that's why it's important to talk a bit about conflict and how you solve conflict in your marriage. When I work with couples, I use the image of a tree, a newly planted tree. Let's say that you both have a home and you go out and buy a tree from a nursery and plant it in your front yard. And you want that tree to thrive and grow. And your marriage is really like growing a tree. It needs to be nurtured, and you have to give it the nutrients of love, empathy, and understanding in order for it to grow into a full, mature tree. And that really represents your marriage. So when you give to your partner the gift of compassion and understanding and love, it's really like putting fertilizer and water on your tree, and you can grow in confidence that your own tree of love will grow throughout the many years that you're together. But we know that anyone can poison a tree, and there are certain poisons in a marriage that will certainly start to harm the marital tree. And part of that, part of the poisons are based on the research of a marriage researcher named John Gottman, who has studied how couples either succeed or fail in their marriages. And John Gottman, through the years, has come up with what he calls 4 very poisonous and very critical communication patterns that will surely harm a marriage. And I'm going to go through them with you right now so you can understand how they can be harmful. The 4 most deadly poisons that will kill your tree of marriage are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And I think all of us understand what criticism is. It's basically telling another person that what they're doing is wrong, and you communicate that through your words, but also through your body gestures and also your voice tonality. The next poison that you want to avoid in your communication styles is contempt. Now, contempt is also communicated through words, but also through voice tonality and body postures. It has to do with name calling, putting down another person, giving someone a very dirty look, or sometimes body postures that are very degrading. And contempt actually can also bleed over into physical violence, shoving, hitting, grabbing, pushing, and things like that. The third very poisonous communication pattern is defensiveness. And again, that is communicated through words, also through voice tonality, and also through body posture. For instance, you might raise an issue or a problem in your relationship, and your partner will flinch or immediately turn it back onto you and say, well, you do the same thing, or maybe get irritated when a question is asked. But defensiveness as a pattern can also start to chip away and poison your marriage. The final very negative poison that can kill a marriage is that of stonewalling. Stonewalling is basically shutting down and shutting up when problems are raised in a relationship. So one of you might want to talk about something, and the other basically either throws up his or her hands, walks away, and shuts down or moves away, doesn't want to talk about it. So those are 4 very important ways of communicating that are really like putting poison on your tree. Over the length of a marriage, it will eventually kill the roots and start to kill the tree itself. And that's important to know that, because avoiding these communication patterns, these negative communication patterns, is really the first step at solving conflict. But what are the conditions then to successful conflict resolution? And first of all, what we want to think about is communicating empathy in order to grow your relationship and also the tree of your marriage. And the way we communicate empathy to one another is by valuing our partner's feelings, talking about our own feelings, listening to our spouse, and communicating that you listen to your spouse with soothing words and behaviors. Soothing words and behaviors are very important, because that's the only way that someone can understand that you really want to connect with them. Another way is to help your partner name his or her experiences and emotions. And again, you do that by listening with those soothing words and behaviors. We also want to develop the ability to have feelings for the other, to literally put ourselves in the shoes of our partner. And finally, we want to refrain from criticism and defensiveness and contempt and stonewalling. In my experience as a marriage therapist, I find that when couples can practice the discipline of refraining from criticism and defensiveness and contempt and stonewalling, it frees up a lot of space in the relationship, and they actually report more successful conflict resolution. Well, what are the steps then towards successful conflict resolution? The first is developing an awareness and an ability to restate your partner's feelings and position. So in conflict, successful couples can take a break from their own position and basically say to the other, this is what your position is, and also these are your feelings, and be able to restate them back to that person, to their partner, so that they can say, yes, that's true. The second is using the language of we during conflict instead of the language of you, as in you always do this, or you always do this other thing, you criticize, or you never want to talk to me. Successful couples use the language of we. We have a problem. We are going to get through this conflict. We can develop some solutions. The third step is that of listening with empathy and really validating the person's experience and feelings. Even in conflict, being able to state the other's position and feelings is so very important. I liken conflict to, I use the image of taking a trip where you're climbing up a mountain in an ice field, and you're both tethered to one another by a rope. And all of a sudden, a big crevasse opens up between the two of you, and one of you is on one side and the other's on the other side. And the tendency when you have division and conflict is to start blaming one another. And in order to get to the other side, when you're in a situation of having a big crevasse between the two of you, you have to throw a rope over. And the way you throw a rope over to the other person is by using the language of we, by saying, I love you, I care for you, we're going to get through this, I want to affirm the relationship, I want to be your friend, etc. Another way of successful conflict resolution is really to know what your role is. Are you a listener? Are you being called to solve a problem? Oftentimes couples start to give advice to each other without understanding really what they're being asked to do. And it would be helpful when you have conflict for each of you really to say what you want from the other person. Do you want that person just to listen and not give advice? Or maybe perhaps you want them to listen and then give advice. And if you're going to give advice, it might be helpful to check that out and ask your partner, is it okay that I give you advice, or do you just want me to listen? But knowing what your role is very, very critical. And the final thing is affirming the relationship in the midst of conflict. And that goes back to the image of climbing up that mountain on that ice field, and when suddenly the crevasse opens and you're both on other sides. The only way to really join back together again is to affirm the relationship by saying, I want to be your friend, I love you, we're going to get through this, we can solve this. So if you review these steps towards conflict resolution and also try to avoid the poisons of criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, I suspect that you're going to have a very successful and loving relationship as the years go by, and your bond will be very, very deep. Thank you for listening.